And just like that, the new Sex and the City reboot, guys. Grab a seat, grab something to drink, get comfortable. We've got to talk. I mean, they took us around the world and back in these first two episodes. I mean, from the culture wars to ageism, you know, um, sex. Uh, we touched it all. So right off the bat, we address the elephant in the room, which is Kim Cattrall or Samantha. So apparently, her and Carrie have had a little bit of a professional falling out, and it's bled over to their personal lives. And Samantha's moved to the United Kingdom. So none of the other three girls are in communication with her. She's kind of on the outs. In comes a new fashionable fourth, Nicole Ari Parker. And she's on the Vogue list, you know, here and there, and she's on this board and that board, and Charlotte and she share a piano teacher, etc., etc. So she quickly comes in, and she's down to earth and you know, apparently classy. And so Miranda, who's having a little bit of trouble navigating the culture wars of today, doesn't seem to have any issue communicating with Nicole Ari Parker. It's a little bit of commentary about class versus race, and it may not have been something that you picked up on, but I certainly did. You know, they really quickly addressed ageism, some of the tabloid stuff that was going on about Sarah Jessica Parker and letting her hair go gray. Miranda has basically fully gone gray at this point, and they have a conversation about, you know, what it means to be in your mid-50s. And, you know, are we embracing age, or are we holding on to, you know, who we were? Carrie she's moved on from a column, and now she's on a sex podcast. Probably, you know, the podcast is probably pretty liberal. It's all over the place, but every once in a while, they get into some really raunchy, new age topics that weren't really discussed in the public, you know, 20 years ago. Masturbation and, you know, all kinds of things they were talking about. And I personally tended to agree with Carrie. You know, some things may be outside of your comfort zone to talk about. I'll be interested to see where that storyline goes, because I'd rather be myself and be comfortable with who I am than stretch myself thin trying to be young and edgy and you know, as you can see, I'm sitting here in a bathrobe. I'm not a young and edgy person by any stretch of the imagination. And certain things I don't discuss in public, not because they're not things that I'm interested in. It's just not part of my personality, if that makes sense. So I'm interested to see where they go with that commentary and that conversation. Maybe I can learn something as a quote-unquote prude. But I was a little bit uncomfortable with, you know, the topic of conversation. Miranda is going back to school, and she's confronted with, you know, gender. There's, you know, a transgender person in the class, and very quickly she gets into an awkward conversation with her professor. It's interesting because this person doesn't fit. You know, she's not Nicole Ari Parker. She doesn't fit this idea that Miranda has, that she fumbles and doesn't know how to just speak on a human-to-human level with this black professor. You know, both she and the professor and Nicole Ari Parker are exceptional black women in the community. But because the professor is a little bit more real and down to earth, Miranda has trouble knowing what to say. And I don't know, I thought that was really interesting, an interesting dynamic where she had no issues with Nicole Ari Parker. Lily, Miranda's daughter, Lily has grown up into a beautiful young person and is playing the piano at a recital, and it's really important to her that her friends come. And I'm glad that they saw how important it was to Charlotte. If I said Miranda, I meant Charlotte. Um, how important it was to her to be there. And Carrie, postpones her trip to go to the Hamptons to be there to support her friend. Really funny, the setup when they're getting out of the cars, and just the New York state of mind, the meeting outside of taxis and passing out the tickets, and it's really nostalgic of old New York, and I really loved being in that atmosphere. And getting settled. It's really funny. The young Nicole Ari Parker, I don't know if it's her son, but he's just awful. But Lily steps up to the plate and starts playing, and you're gonna laugh at me, but I cried. I was so proud for Charlotte. As much as she struggled, to be something, to sometimes put on airs. I was just so proud of the woman that she was raising. How passionate Lily was, and how that was an extension of Charlotte. So I was crying a long time before the Big situation happened. Big is on his Peloton. He's biking and gets off and texts Carrie and says, let's go out to the Hamptons tonight. And, honey, did you see it coming? I didn't. Oh, has a heart attack. And Carrie walks in at the last moments of his life and is able to kiss him goodbye. Oh, when I tell you I was just deflated. Second episode opens and Carrie is just she's just personally deflated. Her friends have stepped up. They're helping her with the planning, and Carrie is not grieving. She is suppressing everything to be there for everyone else. And that's what happens in loss. It's really interesting commentary that they're being real about what happens when someone close to you dies. You end up comforting everyone else. Everyone else wants to know that you're okay, and you have to comfort them to the point where you can't take care of yourself. And so, there's the back and forth about friendships and who's there and who was invited. And Carrie is just, utterly and entirely overwhelmed. They have a beautiful, beautiful memorial service for Big that is interspersed with humor, with grief, with real emotion, and just really wonderfully done. I really have to say, I was not somber the entire time. When Carrie's best friend, I can't think of his name right now, my goodness, but Mario Cantone's boyfriend, I want to call him Stedman, but I can't think of his name. When he stood up and said, "No, I'm sitting by my best friend, and I want my husband next to me," I said, I know that's right. There are certain situations where polite is out the window, and where you have to stand up and say, this is what it is. When Miranda confronts Carrie's boss outside for smoking with her son, I said, here. That woman was completely inappropriate. And I like how mature she was. You can tell that, the disc jockey or the podcast lady was really mature, and how she handled that and was able to respect Miranda, and they were able to become friendly. I really appreciated that. I'll leave you, that gorgeous, grandiose apartment that they have, that was in the movie a dream. It was heaven, in Manhattan. How by the end of the second episode, the setting in the apartment had become such a dreary and sad place was truly heartbreaking. I think it is an honest commentary about life and loss and life expectancy. You know, everyone thinks we're going to live to 75, 80, 90, 100, and that's just not the reality a lot of times. And how do you move forward, you know, with these kinds of challenges? I love that this show is not shying away from age and the impact that age has on us, and how New York City is changing and evolving. And it is difficult when you're stuck in your ways and a little bit prudish to learn things about polyamory and you know, to talk openly about masturbation in public. Even just saying that on a video just is light years beyond my comfort zone. So this show, I mean, it came back with a bang, kids. And I'm really interested to see where we go the rest of the season. Costumes were wonderful. The characters, you know, they jumped right back into their you know, compatibility. I kept thinking Samantha was going to show up. You know, they're writing in such a way that the door, and I love that is so mature that the writing is in such a way that the door is still open for Kim Cattrall, for Samantha to come back in. I think that is the most mature commentary about the show, is that the door is still open. I wish that the relationships in my life had that kind of maturity, the relationships in my family had that kind of maturity. And it's a lesson, that's the one lesson that I'm going to walk away from these 2 episodes with. What did you think? I mean, my mind is just in a whirlwind of, you know, what happened in these 2 episodes. But I'm absolutely loving it and can't wait till next week. I'm going to post a review, hopefully for the rest of this season. As always, guys, give this video a like, a comment, and please consider subscribing for more Sex in the City and movie and TV related content. Until next time, guys, cheers.